I've done a bit of prodding, we can say, to the PCB here. This is what I've discovered. That's a turn signal and that's a turn signal. So I think that might be left and that might be right. This port here on the PCB is for the steering servo. This one here that I've just thrown a regular servo onto, if we press B, so that will allow you to install a 2-speed transmission in the future if you'd like. C, unfortunately, is busy with the lights. Interestingly enough, I was sitting here looking around and I realized that right there we have some blank ports. Obviously, they look just like these here. So reading the voltage, I found that this port, the positive and the negative here, are 5 volts. So is this, and so are these. So these are all 5-volt ports on the PCB. I happen to have some headers I'm going to go ahead and solder onto there so I can use those because I want to have taillights, and I could always steal that from some other source like the battery or something. But might as well just snag that from there. I also am thinking about installing this beacon light, so we might as well get the power from that one. Perfect. So those will just go in there. I'm going to pre-bend them and then solder in place. Oh, that's outstanding. I made a couple wiring harnesses and they're kind of complicated because I wanted these little tiny, I think these are like 2x4 or 2x3, I think, SMT LEDs, and we're going to shove those in here. What I did, which is probably the only thing that makes sense here, you can see how dark that one is there. That one has its original housing that's just, you know, the injection molded black plastic. This one here, if we kind of just shove it near there, you're going to see the difference. Honestly, whether or not you put lights in here, just taking a silver paint pen and just painting that in there, what a monumental difference. I'll explain more about what I did with the LEDs as soon as I get some things organized. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and mount this in here with some hot glue, and then we'll have our taillights and our turn signals, which are on a separate loom, drying right now because there's this stuff here on them. That's where we're at. It looks like crap. I have a plan. Okay, so I have this piece of basically translucent acrylic, and that's kind of the look. It actually looks better in person. What I did is I went ahead and just kind of painted one up a little bit. I'm going to set that right there and then put the lens over it just to give an idea of how well the acrylic sheet worked. Again, the camera doesn't do a great job of getting the image, but you can see how much more kind of uniform. You really can't. There's a lot more of a glow on this one here versus this one, which is basically just a dot. So again, I apologize you can't see it as well as I do, but it definitely helps. Cool. It's not as insane as it looks. There's some kind of untidiness in terms of these little tiny wires here for the SMT LEDs. They're just so minuscule. Because they're going to different locations, they're really hard to kind of bundle all together. Anyway, it's not so bad. All these things are relatively easy removable if something happens. So we have, this is the left turn signal, and that will go for the rear, and the front left, the right is right here. Then we've got the headlights, still the headlights. This port here powers the auxiliary headlights, the front marker lights, and the tail lights. And then this one here, which is currently switched, it's B. And I installed this remote switch here, and that is going to control these beacon lights. I actually have 2 yellow ones. Where did the other one? It's here somewhere. So that's how that's going to work. I'm going to put the bed on next. I'm wiring up the front side markers. Now these are actually repeaters, but I figured I would, I'm doing all this effort. I just want them to be on. So that's what they're going to do. These were just hot glued into place. Sorry, it looks a little weird there. I'll put a little bit of a light blocker behind it, a little bit of hot glue there because we don't want to overstress that. And then we'll route these wires. These here for the turn signals, and they just slot into the backs of these guys, which have a 3mm hole ready for a 3mm LED. Fog lights. So I painted this in low gloss black. This is from Shapeways SLS nylon. This is the little backing plate here. We're just gonna pop that off, and I think we're likely going to need some flush cutters. Snake these in there a bit and cut that off. Come on in here then and cut off that piece right there and that piece right there, and we'll get our insides. I'm gonna go ahead and paint this entire inside section here in silver, as well as this side over here. And then we're gonna put a lens in. So for the lens, I have these lenses from the Tamiya Hilux. It's these guys here. In fact, I've used these before. on my Tamiya Pajero build, these guys. But because I like yellow, we're going to use the yellow variants right there. These should very happily just pop in like that. Yep, they in fact will. Just like that. And there is your lens. Cool, I'm pretty happy about that. Painted the insides all silver, and then I just glued the back panel on and we're all set. Next, we need to pull this front bull bar off. Underneath here, these are countersunk. So we're going to use some flat head screws in there. Let me go hunt some down. All right, so we've got these very small self-tapping M2 screws. Go straight through the bottom. Grab that, which is now sticking up too high. Shoot. Okay, we'll back that off a tiny bit. Now we can set it in there and thread it in place. Both of them installed. You see the little screws at the bottom, nice and flat. The bar at the center right there is there just to ensure that they're parallel. We're not done, obviously. We have to put the LED in. Unfortunately, the body has to come off for that because the LEDs are actually run already.